So without further ado, let's start with rule number one. Ideologies are my enemy. People are not. Now, I know some of you are already rolling your eyes, but hear me out. I'm going to try as much as possible to not other people. Let me explain what I mean by that. Otherness is a sociological concept exploring how groups build collective identities by excluding the other, those viewed as inherently and uniquely different. Othering, then, as a verb, is developing mental, social, and political structures to define and identify the other, often to justify exclusion, persecution, or violence. I probably don't have to tell you this, but othering, I think, is really just central to how Trump operates and how a lot of people he surrounds himself also operate. Everyone who disagrees with us is an enemy. All leftists are vermin. Immigrants from impoverished countries are coming from shithole countries. This is simply a tiny smattering of some of the colorful things that our president has said about those who are not like him and or those who don't support him. However, and I'm saying this as a progressive myself, I see a lot of people on the left as well doing the same things. Here are a few examples of what I'm talking about. All cops are bastards. No Zionists allowed. I'm cutting off all my Trump supporting friends and family. Why do I have a problem with this? Because it is dehumanizing. It's fighting fire with fire. You're trying to counter someone else's exclusionary and othering language and rhetoric with your own exclusionary and othering language and rhetoric. You are refusing to see the humanity of those that you disagree with, which is exactly what Donald Trump and a lot of people he surrounds himself with do. Now, I'm just saying this again as a progressive that I want to resist this rhetoric regardless of who's saying it. Whether it's people I agree with or people I disagree with, when I encounter dehumanizing rhetoric, I want to call it out. I really want to stand up to it as morally unacceptable, ethically hypocritical, and honestly a little emotionally immature. It feels really good to say I'm right and they're wrong, and because I'm right, I can stop talking to these people. And if I'm honest with myself, I've done that too, to some degree. I think all of us have in the past 10 years. However, as much as is humanly possible, I want to treat my opponents the way that I would want them to treat me. I want to privilege their humanity and afford them the same dignity that I would want from them towards myself. Now, I want to be clear, having said all that, I'm not saying we shouldn't resist policies, ideologies, belief systems, rhetorics. We absolutely should. You know, things like facts and science and human rights and dignity and actual historical events that really happened regardless of how you feel about them. These are things we're going to have to fight for and defend. However, whenever I do that, I always want to remember that my enemies are not the people. My enemies are their beliefs. Let me talk a little bit about why I feel so strongly about this. There's a lot of reasons, but here's just a few. One is that I grew up in a very conservative, I would go as far as to say fundamentalist Christian church, which openly taught and embraced white supremacy. My church was like the center of my life. We went to church 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 times a week. The school that I attended from kindergarten through 8th grade was at our church. And although, you know, it was kind of a warm and fuzzy place, people were nice to each other. I didn't get yelled at or beat or anything like that. In that environment, you know, we believed that God was on our side, that we were right and that everybody else was wrong. And othering was such a part of how we did life that it like wasn't even questioned. We were constantly going around separating clean from unclean, right? We're the good people, they're the bad people. We are righteous, they are unrighteous. That kind of fundamentalist thinking is something that is attractive to all kinds of people. And I see people on both the left and the right who are doing it. And I'm saying as someone who considers himself more on the left, I really want to try to not do that regardless of the degree to which the people that I disagree with. And a lot of what I see in some progressive circles is just kind of like leftist fundamentalism. If I say to myself, I can't talk to, think about, interact with such and such people, you know, for whatever reason, that's fundamentalist thinking. I'm good, they're bad. I love America, they hate America. And that is literally the tribal anti-human mentality that has led to virtually every problem the human race faces on a global scale. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about like being best friends. Like most people, my friends are generally people who think like I do. And I think maybe that's okay. The issue for me is this absolute kind of blanket statement. I'm not going to listen to anything these people have to say. I'm not going to reach out or interact. I'm just going to silo myself in this world where everything around me makes me happy and comfortable. But again, this does not mean that we should not stand up and resist. I'm not saying that people who are actively being abused or repressed or repressed should just smile and be nice. But at the end of the day, if you embrace the dehumanizing tactics of your opponents, how are you any different from them? Which is why, as I mentally, emotionally, and spiritually prepare myself to resist the Trump agenda, I want to make sure that people are not my enemies, ideologies are.